In South Korea, people work a lot. That's pretty much an understatement. More than 18% of Koreans work more than 50 hours a week, and anecdotally, the hours seem to be much, much worse. In an attempt to shake up the work-life balance, the government is set to announce a labor reform bill next month, which it says will give workers more flexibility, though tired workers are not sure how much it might help.
What's on the lunch menu for office workers in Seoul? Typically 40 winks at a nap cafe, where overworked office staff can have a rest. I usually take a nap during lunchtime. I can't get enough sleep as I need to take care of my work, relationship and personal life. So I take this time to sleep. The 33-year-old desk jockey comes here nearly every day to try to catch up on sleep. Many others do the same in a society where overtime is an epidemic. The government is introducing a new labour bill which will allow workers to choose how much overtime work they can take on a weekly, monthly or even a yearly basis, a departure from the 52-hour workweek enacted in 2018. The government says that with more labour flexibility, workers will end up working less in the end, but it also means that people can work up to 69 hours in 1 week every month.
I had no choice but to quit my job where I worked for more than 14 years because I have to take care of my son, and now I'm focusing on raising my child. However, if the government continues its policy of increasing working hours in the future, I can't even dream of having a second child at all.
And that's the crux of it. Long working hours mean falling birth rates, leading to ageing population, which in turn means a shrinking workforce.
I think it's very important to reform the system of long working hours to solve the low birth rate problem. Working long hours gives unmarried people a very tiring life, which eventually leads them to avoiding marriage.
South Korea's working age population peaked at 38 million in 2019 and is set to drop by more than 9 million by 2040.
And joining us is Jung Im-hyun, who teaches in the Korean Studies program at the University of Central Lancashire. Welcome to the program. So it seems as if a lot of Koreans feel quite ambivalent about this new labor plan. What's your take on it?
Yes, obviously, this conservative government tried to extend working hours until up to 69 per week, which is, against the current of actual tendency according to, about working hours. And if this law could be passed, I think it would be a strong backlash from the unions and from ordinary Korean people.
The government, though, is saying it's actually going to give people flexibility, that in the end, people might even work less. So it doesn't sound like you think that's going to be an issue.
Well, we all know that this so-called flexibility is not for workers, it's a flexibility for employers. Well, I think it is kind of global phenomenon, the term flexibility in a labor market, but it turned out since late 1990s, it's harmed harmed better than for workers, in fact, in terms of working hours and payment as well.
Right. So in South Korea, there's the tension of keeping women in the workforce, which is key to growing the economy. But there's also the need to encourage more couples to have more children, which is also key to growing the economy in the long term. How do you think this potential labor reform would impact this demographic challenge that South Korea has?
The reform of labor law under this conservative government obviously will affect for women's everyday life, and of course it will affect for For the population also, but about the decreasing population, I mean South Korean population, it's not only because of the working hours. It's a whole, let's say, social system to raise children in South Korea is problematic, in fact. It's not favorable at all to raise a child in South Korea. Because of harsh, competitive social system, education system also, and social protection system as well.
Right, so any change to the labor law is just going to complicate this conversation that couples will have with each other. Jung Im-hyun, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
This weekend marks the start of the Lunar New Year in many parts of Asia when families from near and far come together in celebration. Though that's not the case for everyone. Since the passage of Hong Kong's sweeping national security law in 2020, a record number of political exiles have moved to Taiwan. They do not feel safe returning home, so they're staying on the island and will mark the holiday in their new home, as DW's Cha Chun-ye in Taipei reports.
A festive atmosphere in the streets of Taipei. The Lunar New Year is a time for homecoming and family reunions, but many Hong Kongers cannot go back home. Mrs. Cho, she would only give her last name, is preparing a traditional Cantonese festive dish. It's going to be her third Lunar New Year in Taiwan. She says she never used to be good at cooking, but missing the flavors of Hong Kong has changed that. Mrs. Zhou moved to Taiwan following Beijing's crackdown on the Hong Kong pro-democracy movement. She has never been back. She runs a restaurant now to support exiled Hong Kongers, so she is afraid of showing her face on screen.
The reason why I wouldn't go back to Hong Kong is the same one as why I chose to move to Taiwan. Hong Kong is now completely different from what it used to be.
Cho is only one of many people in Taiwan who had to leave Hong Kong. Before the New Year, she is having a reunion dinner with other exiles. One of her friends, Ao Wai-ling, says seeing each other is nice. It reminds them of their roots. As a journalist, Ao reported on the protest in Hong Kong in 2019. She later fled to Taiwan, where she had already spent time as a student. She now sees the island as a second home, but many others don't feel that way.
Most Hong Kong people have chosen to leave Taiwan because of its immigration policy. They don't know when they will get a definitive answer on whether they can stay long-term or not.
People are not just kept in administrative limbo. While the Taiwanese government says in principle that it welcomes Hong Kongers, some politicians are calling for a tightening of immigration rules. They say national security is at stake. So more and more Hong Kongers have already given up on Taiwan and left for other countries.
Ao Wai-ling says Hong Kong immigrants could help protect Taiwan. She says she's willing to prove her loyalty to her new home, should China invade.
If there's a war, I hope that as a citizen, I can do something for Taiwan.
Ao has made up her mind to stay, but for many other Hong Kongers in Taiwan, that is clearly a difficult decision as the Year of the Rabbit gets underway.